Morning, it's time for some actual electrical content, yeah? So what we're going to do today is, we're going to look at a control panel. Door. And we're going to look at, this is the first time I've got one. Let me explain to you what's going on here. I feel sorry for people that follow this Instagram and this YouTube because it's the most disjointed mess you can ever imagine, because I do these projects in what I call a run and gun style. What is called a run and gun style, yeah? I hit a project, I record it, I then edit it, like we're doing now for the PLC test rig one, and then they go on my YouTube. If you are actually following along, what will happen is you'll get a video on a PLC and then you'll see nothing for a month. Then you get another video on a PLC, you'll see nothing for a month. The Bright Sign project, I've just literally took this thing apart and showed it, and it's been one of the most popular videos. I'm still messing around with the software. That's why it's on there. The end game is, like my 2391 playlist on this medium, is that eventually there's something there to look at. The videos eventually come together to a playlist that you can watch, but if you're following on live, they take ages because I've got little projects on. And today, we're going to start filming a video called What Makes Up a Control Panel, or Control Panels, or Industrial Control Panels, or fucking something. But I've got a multitude of projects on in here, and someone's enabled me to do another one. Now, I've got a bit of kit down in the office I'm going to go in the workshop, I'm going to show you in a minute, because we're going to do a little project together. I know I've got about fucking 10 on, but I'm going to do a project that involves control panels and how they work, and we're going to refurbish one. As I've said previously, without people donating stuff to this channel and me, nothing would happen. So at the minute in this studio, there's a lot of donations going off here. A lot of it is small stuff that's not don't be put up by the fact that it's small, it's expensive, like this one I got, and other bits and bobs. But anyway, you get the idea. Now, Eddie, the other week, gave me a load of smart PLCs, which are down there. And I'm going to utilise them for this project, because we're going to go downstairs, because one thing I didn't have in here, you'll notice in here, there is not a control panel. There's still not a control panel in here, and there's not going to be, because this fucking thing weighs a ton. So let me take you down the workshop and introduce you to the first full control panel I've got that I can actually take around, that is a control panel, exists a control panel, it's a box with loads of different stuff in, and we're going to look at what's there, and we're going to then look at how we're going to modify it to make it a training facility. So we'll go down to the office. Right then, we're in the stores. I've been chopping up wood. This was a shithole. There's no floor here a minute ago. It's an absolute fucking shithole. This is the stores. This is where crap and good things come to die together, where the crap remains crap and the good things get crap before they eventually get up in the skip. So it's a bit of a shithole. However, I've cleaned off this side. I'm going to show you outside a little present I got off Eddie. I've never had, because I've never been able to rescue one, because a lot of the panels I do were quite big, and then I've just never come across one. I've never had a control panel. But now, I have a control panel. Let me show you what Uncle Eddie's been giving me again. Well, he gave us all in one go, but there's so many bits of it to break it down. So let me wheel it in and show you what goodies I've got. So first of all, he gave me the panel. That one there, it weighs a fucking ton. So he also gave me this. And this, I was blown away with this, because this is something you have to buy and give me. He's given me this lifting trolley, look, to move it around. It goes down if you pull down. So thank you for the trolley, Eddie. I know you went and bought that at your own money, and I'm very grateful for that. I now have the challenge of making it somehow cater for that panel. But we've all seen the trolley before. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put the trolley out of the way, and I'm going to get the panel in here. Rather than crouch around on the floor outside, I'm going to get the panel here, get it up on here, using that trolley, knocking that shovel over, and I'll take you through. That control panel will all have a look together, because I am not very familiar with HVAC stuff. That's what it is, and we'll see if we can work it out. And if any spots me struggling with it, you can chip in on the message and let me know. I keep banging about going to see Eddie, yeah, because I learned so much and picked up so many new things because I went to see someone else's business, right? I never, ever thought to use this type of trolley to build panels, but he builds all these panels like this, on the fucking back, on one of these trolleys. And obviously, this trolley pumps up. I can't remember where the pump bit is now. I forgot where the pump bit is. But yeah, it pumps up, and it's just fucking brilliant. And obviously, you can open the door, you can work on the door, you can work on it inside. He builds the plates and then puts them in, but this trolley's mint because it's going to be so easy for me to get that up on there, because that trolley pumps up. What a fucking great idea. I've undersold the trolley in that video there. The trolley didn't quite make it. Now, if I'd have thought about it, I put some wood underneath it, but it weren't sketchy at all putting that onto there, I assure you. It was not sketchy at all. That was not a sketchy situation, and I will not be showing that video. But yeah, let's stand it up and let's have a nose at it. It's got bolts on the bottom I need to be aware of, so I'll have to make sure I pack it up. Right, I got it up. It weren't that sketchy. The table's not as strong as it looks because the middle support's missing. First of all, stop kicking the tripod. Let me move this trolley. When you're dealing with panels, this is from years of building panels experience. I was in a panel shop which was bigger than where we're now, building huge, massive panels. You have to learn how to move them safely. They are big, solid lumps, And once they start to go over, they'll keep fucking going over and they'll obliterate anything in the way. What you got to be aware of now is that panel is completely stable there, although the bench is a little bit wobbly. It's got a wobble to it to the front. What a lot of mistakes people make is they open the doors and they go over. Opening a door to a panel is very, very, very dangerous, because if they are not fixed or bolted down, you're taking a load of not very heavy metal and you're going to lever it over. If you're lucky, it'll fall like that line of a door, but if you're somewhere here, it can shut, close the door and fucking go over, so be aware of that. So I'm going to put that there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some wedges underneath it so it's nice and secure. I've got it on some bits of wood because it's sat on the bolts, making it really unstable. First of all, so I can make it safe, what we'll do is I'll flip you around like I do your mum, and we'll just look at the door, as in this specific door, not just a general look at a control panel door, to see what's on it. Let's get that sorted. I can get a door open and we'll look at the juicy goodness that's inside. I've been sweating like I've been cutting up a lot of wood, so that's why I look like a sex offender, look like David Saving this video. Here we go then. It's not a massively complicated door, but it's got a lot of the features expected of the door. I'll start with the top half first, like I do with your mum, yeah? There's a panel alive lamp, which is white. Generally, anything panel live will be white, and all the others have a colour code. Now in this case, the run lights are in green, and the fault lights are in red, which seems good. Green is go, red is stop. However, I've worked at a number of factories where red is go, because red is danger, and green is stops, it's safe, and amber would be trip or fault. But the good thing about standards is there's loads to choose from. So you've got a panel live, emergency shutdown operated, some sort of pressurisation fault specific to this panel. Then you've got a load of stuff for the controls. Below the lamps, they're just lamps. I'll show you what's special about them on the back in a minute. You've got these toggle switches. That one goes from off to auto, off to auto. Some of them select between one pump or the other pump, i.e. the standby or the duty, but toggle switches are very common. I'm not going into loads and loads of detail about them because obviously it's a light, it's a switch, the magic happens on the back. HMI, yeah, a touch screen as you may call it. We call them HMIs, human machine interfaces. So that's a very, very small touch screen by Trend and ISO V4. That'll be coming out because Trend's a fucking it'll absolutely cost you a fortune. You can't get the software. See anything with Trend on it, see you later, mate. Yeah, don't bother with it unless you're a Trend authorised integrator. Moving down the doors, it's got a couple of, well, moving up, couple of big fuck off chunky handles. These are proper nice lockable handles, and it's got an nice at the bottom. I'll show you. Just this panel, yeah. This panel, I think this has been made. It's extremely thick metal, thicker than the ones you buy off the shelf are from like the Eldons and the Schneiders of the world. And I suspect that was custom made or custom made in a metal shop for a company that make high vac, because it's a little bit thicker than I expect. Or it's so old, it's quality made, whereas all stuff you buy nowadays is a bit shit and as thin as it can be. Moving you down. There is an isolator handle. That's an ABB one. I could tell that a mile off. And it has got a button in it. So on these handles, they'll be interlocked, as you know. You can have it off and on. The door opens when it's open. You can have it off and on where the door opens when it's on and opens when it's off. Not interlocked. Some of them, and this one, when it's off, the door will open. And when it's on, the door will not open. That is interlocked. Some of them have a little button down here that you can press. That's interlock defeatable, as in when it's on, if you press the secret little button, the door will open regardless. That's achieved by a little T-beam on the bar. So if you can't get a door open, don't start trying to ram it open or pull it open or think about switching off, because you might cause loads of damage. Just have a check, see if it's defeatable. They often are. You also get these with a test position, where you'd have on, off and test. That would be off, on, as in complete working, and test would just energise the control circuit, so there's no mains voltage in there. Right, let's have a nose inside, shall we? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn you around and go forward face, because otherwise you're just going to be, I'm going to talk about those stuff that's in the fucking background. You're not going to see, man. I don't know which side to go, so I'm going to flip you around and we'll just go through the internals of this specific panel, try and work out a bit of what it does and a bit of what we're going to do to it. So let's have a nose inside. Start with the back of a door. At the top, these are all the lamps. They're called tranny lamps, these are. And the reason they're called tranny lamps is because they're like cross-dressing. No, not really. The reason they're like cross-dressing, the reason they're called tranny lamps is because they take 240 volts, but then they transform it in a transforming side into a voltage that lights the lamp on the front up at a much lower voltage. So like, I think in this case, these will be 24s. They are 6 volts, so they've got to get a load of 6 volt lamps for it, yeah? So yeah, it's all marked with 230 volt AC, but the actual lamps at the front are 6 volts, so be aware, that can catch you out. The reason they use tranny lamps is because it keeps all the mains inside, but on the outside, accessible if someone sticks the finger in, they'll only get 6 volts. These particular ones are 2-terminal tranny lamps, which means they don't have a test function. So on a test tranny lamp, if on the front of the panel you'd have a button test and it'd energise all the lights for testing purposes so you could check all the lamps worked. These particular ones do not have that. That's your lamps. Moving down, here's the back of the select switches. These are made by Kraus and Naylor. If you have a selector switch that looks like that, at any point in your career, it will be Kraus and Naylor. They do an off-the-shelf selection of these for various things, but they also make you any selector which you want. And I'm talking ones that are that deep that they stick right out here, past where my finger is. So Kraus and Naylor are the go-to if you want a selector switch, especially if you want one specially made. So obviously the wires in there, there'll be a common in and a normally open, normally closed contact. I don't know how these particular ones are wired, but we'll find out. They're Kraus and Naylor select switches. Moving down a little bit, I'll wobble you. There's the Trend HMI, which is absolutely useless to us and will have to come out and be replaced by another HMI, which Eddie's given me, because we've not got the Trend software. We're not going to get the Trend software. Even if we get it and it was hacked, it wouldn't work till tomorrow. Trend have got that shit locked the fuck down. Also, up here, look, even though you'd have to have the software to make it work, so if you had the Trend software and you came here, you still got to log in, because I think it's a secret, because they put the code up there, look. They've put the 0845 for the engineer and the 1830 for the specific thing, I think. Or is that the engineer? Is that a time? Anyway, there's some random stuff there. I think that's code for the Trend. Because as well as having the software, you'd need the site-specific code for that, I believe. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because I'm never going to do a video on Trend, because you cannot get the software. If you find any Trend, you're wasting your time. Down at the bottom, there's the isolator thing that the handle goes into. The handle's actually missing, but I've got one. It's got the cross shape on it, so it's interlocked. I could go into isolators in an entire video. And then here, I like when people put these in. You've got a little panel bit of information here. I wonder what's in here, actually. I haven't looked. Oh, what's in there? What's in that? Oh, the panel keys are in there, so I can lock it up if I want, which is quite useful training. There's some usual instruction bits and bobs. And there is no drawings, but there's the information for the Trend, because I suspect that HMI has either been added in, I think this has been added in, or it's been replaced from an earlier version, because Trend love to supersede and make stuff obsolete. So I suspect that's been changed and they've had to recut it out. Also, I'll show you something interesting about that. I'm not sure how old that Trend panel is. I'm not really that bothered to look, but I'm not sure, but I'm sure he might tell me, yeah? Look how huge it is round the back. It's a good, like, 8 inches, as your mum would say. But then at the front, look, it's absolutely fucking tiny. And it's got this weird plastic thing around it. So I'm not sure what's going off there. We'll find out. That's coming out, so we'll find out when we take it out. We're going to modify this panel. This is just a look at it today, but we'll work out what's been going off with that when it comes out. Or maybe it's so old that it has to have a massive, huge thing on the back like that. We will power this up before we take it apart and see what we can get out of it. But that might not be a lot. Right, let's move inside the panel and start the top. Now let's start the bottom, like your mum. What we're going to do here is, we're going to go over what the components are, or what I think they are, and what they're probably doing. What I'm going to try and avoid doing is talk about what I'm going to get rid of, or things that I don't need. Because I'm just going to try and explain the control components to you, as if we found it. Then the next time we come back to this, we're going to start maybe powering it up and removing things that are no good to us, because I suspect some stuff in it is no good to us. For example, that Trend controllers, that's got to fucking go. It's useless. It's not going to achieve anything. I want to turn this into a panel for training on the trolley, with a HMI and a controller that people can practice programming on and fault finding on. Not quite sure it's going to work yet, but that's why we do this. And so let's have a look what's inside. And like I say, we'll start at the bottom, because that tends to be where you find a lot of the ancillary shit. This is not the best shot, but I'll B-roll it for you after, yeah? First of all, this is a top connection panel, so sometimes you've got all the connections at the bottom, sometimes you've got the connection at the top. In this particular case, all the terminals are at the top. There are a set of 230 volts incoming terminals at the top, I think. So I've left all the lid on for now. Down here we've got a transformer, another transformer, something called 3RM1, a mains isolator, which is the incomer, a neutral link block, which associates the isolator, a breaker, MN link, and some PACB full of gubbins, and some relays. Let's have a nose back down there, because the view's shit. Let's see if we can work out what a few of these are doing, because they've got some interesting labels on them. So here we've got a transformer, yeah, and it looks to me to be I can't tell, because I don't know what voltage is. Obviously, this whole panel's 240 volt, yeah? Whoops. Sorry about that. So the whole panel's 240 volt. Now, Obviously, you've got a nice, look, let me show you this, because you've got an incoming terminal there, look. I believe that's the incoming terminal, look. That's broke, but we'll put that together later, yeah? I think that is the incoming terminals. I think that'll go through here, and it'll, oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't do that, because the top of the isolator's got nothing in. Oh, weird. We'll come back to that. I'm not going to taking apart, like I say, but this transformer, T1, is a 40 VA transformer, and it is a 230 volt in, and it's got, the fuck does that say? It's 24 volt out, there you go. Remember, it's a transformer, not a power supply, so that 24 volt out is AC, yeah? That is very, very important to remember, because I suspect that all the relays now are AC, because I cannot in here see a DC power supply. That's important to remember. Interesting. Nowadays, everything will be 24 volt DC or 110 or 230 volts, yeah? This style of build, when you have tranny lamps, you'll often find all the internals are AC. So that throws a bit of a spanner in my work straight away, because I sort of have a lot of 24 volt DC. But this is going to be a live testing panel, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That also means that all the components in here, all the relays and everything, are going to be switching at AC, which is not something I'm dead familiar with, because it's a really weird, it's a lot of HVAC in this. When I started, control voltages where I worked, and the common industry one was 110 volt AC. So, anyway, back to that transformer. So there we've got a 40 VA, 230 volt in, 24 volts AC out transformer. And it says, danger, T1 transformer is supplied from the live side of the isolator. So basically, when you turn this panel off, T1 stays live, which you're probably thinking, that's a bit weird. But look at it, look, it's got the numbers on it, AA1 and AA2. I heavily suspect, and I'm starting to guess now because I can't help myself, yeah, that goes to the controller. So basically, if you turn the panel off in the plant room, wherever that's being remotely monitored from, it will communicate that it's off. And that is the purpose of it not isolating. So we'll find out what that does later, but I think that keeps the essential control circuits will stay live. Next to it, we've got T2, which is a 40 VA transformer. Again, that's a 24 volt AC transformer, and that'll be supplying all the shit that gets isolated when it gets isolated. Now we're going to get this card. I don't know what these cards do. It's made by a firm called Sonte. Eddie's going to help me out in a minute. It's obviously a relay card, but it's got things at the top. So it's got relay outs down here, and it's just got things in there. Something must control those relays. I don't know if it's a data bus on these cables, but obviously these are switching cables, but they're white, and that's also white, so I just don't get it. That's something I've got to dig in and find out. I suspect those white cables are some sort of data bus that tell these relays to switch, like a remote control card from the main processor. But there'll be a few of them. There you've got the isolator coming in, single phase, and the neutral link. I'm guessing that neutral goes around there, I don't know. You've got some random breaker, here we go. They are the breakers. That breaker and that neutral link that's next to it, which is the white one, they are taken from the live side of the transformer to feed that transformer. So what I think happens now is, on the incomer look, there's two cables. So I bet they go down the trunking, and one set goes into that isolator, and one set goes to that. That don't make sense though, because where's the cables coming out of here? That must be the incomer. I don't fucking know. Like, what am I trying to guess anyway? Next to it, we've got another one of those cards that I suspect works on some sort of bus system, and a relay. And there we've got a load of 5 amps. Oh, look, interesting. That says 5 amp switch socket outlet for commissioning purposes only. I'll give you a clue. That is not a 5 amp switch socket outlet. That is a bank of relays. So clearly, the panel has been modified at some point in its career to incorporate those. So that's what you get for looking. You found out that the socket's not there anymore, but that bank of relays, I wonder what voltage they are. Let's have a look. They are 230 volt relays that have been modded in. That'll be interesting. Maybe we'll take that mod out, maybe we won't, because obviously I suspect it's going to be different to all these relays up here. Well, I can see, oh no, look. Whoop. They're 230, 230, 230, 230, 230, 230, 230. Then you've got some, oh, there you go, 24 volt AC, 24 volt AC. So you've got some mixture of 24 volt and 230 volt AC stuff. Coming up here, you've got a bit of distribution and protection just by breakers like you'd expect. Those breakers are not consistent with the age of this panel. They are very, very modern breakers, so I suspect that they have been added in to replace some fuses because it says F's, look. So I don't know, but anyway, I wonder if that bar's the same, although that's one long bit of bar. It's a very confusing panel because I'd expect that bar, maybe they were thin mounted breakers, I don't know. Next to that, we've got another one of these devices. That to me clearly is some sort of bus going in the top. Yeah, that is clearly some data going over the top now. And then what's coming out of there, I suspect, I very highly suspect that they would be temperature probes. So that to me looks like, it hasn't got anything, it says IOUD. I think they're temperature probes. I think that's a card capable of doing some temperature probing. 0 and VFC. I don't know, I'm going to have to take one out and find out, but I'm not going to use those anyway because that data must be something I'm not used to, so that's going. Then we've got a massive bank of relays for controlling stuff. Starting off with the 24 volt AC Omron that's obviously been changed. All the other ones are existing because Omron will last a lifetime. And then we've got two more of those cards that look like they're on a different sort of data bus. They're on a different data bus now, so wires aren't the same colours. And they've got relay switches stuff on the outgoing, look. 2RM relay module A, 2RM relay module B. So yeah, that's that row and all the gubbins that are inside it. This is how I know that they're not original because they say Schneider and they're way too new. And these say Telemecanique, which dates them to about 20 years ago because Telemecanique was bought by Schneider. Also, these are pimp because these are modular. That is the overload section. This is the connecting section. And that is a module that they sit in and you can put other modules in here. I've got a few of these upstairs I can show you. But yeah, this was a very, very, very expensive modular system for motor starting. And obviously, they've used it in here. And you could get like digital modules for this. You could get like a control module that went in here that worked on Ethernet. This was a very, very expensive system that they still sell. And the whole idea with it was to eliminate loads and loads of control wiring. But in here, they've got loads of control wiring. So maybe this company standardised with this frame here is what you use. And then you meant to put crafty modules in it, but maybe they just standardised on it. So there you go, that's the first introduction to that, but that could easily have its own video, and I will do a separate video on those, but they are motor controllers. You've got the on, off, and the trip in the middle. There's the overload bit, and obviously what's good about them is, if you change this motor and the cable's the right size, but the overload's wrong, you can withdraw this motor overload and swap it for the right size. I worked at a company where we used these extensively. The whole site was made out of them, and they were very, very useful, but it was difficult to keep spares. I've just noticed there, look, as well. Oh, that's got, so they're locked, they're not blocks. There's an extra normally open, normally closed contact lock in that one. But like I said, I'll do a separate video on that. And there's what I call an on-buzz bar block and the buzz bars to distribute the power all the way across the top. And I'm knocking all the labels off. And again, they're all single phase pumps on this system. No free phase. So yeah, that's the motor starters. Here's your trend controller. It's just a fancy PLC that's designed specifically for HVAC applications and has software and settings and things baked into it for that purpose. That's as far as we're going to go on trend. There's absolutely no point me going into it because, like I say, it's a complete closed system. Absolute waste of my time. And I believe Eddie replaces these panels with an open protocol system so that they don't have to pay these fuckers loads and loads of money, allegedly. Maybe that'll just be on YouTube. But yeah, if I have a trend system, unless it's a massive building like a tower block or a very huge building, there comes a point where it's not worth having trend because the amount of money you have to pay to have maintained is just too much. So you don't want it, you don't, unless you send it to a swimming pool, maybe it's great. A tower block, maybe it's great, but you don't want it in a little like community centre because you're just going to pay a fortune to control fucking 6 pumps or something. Anyhow, more of those. Don't know what these are. I don't know what they do. I wonder if that's a temperature one because it's got analog cables coming out of it. And finally, up on the top row, as we discussed earlier, there's the main incomer. And then there are all the, what I would imagine are the pump cables going out, where you've got a live and a neutral and a bigger cable. And then some control stuff. You've got a bit of orange stuff there, which orange normally signifies that it goes to volt-free contacts inside the panel. But I'm not quite sure where they're enough. I can't fucking see them anywhere. I can see some orange, but I don't think it's that orange. Or is that a data bus? I do not know. It's very, very weird. It's not the control panel that I'm used to. But anyway, let me turn you around because we've covered it all. I just took all the lids off to give you a show. Not that I'll be able to give you a wicked show, but you can see now it's clear. The mods are clear. Like all that white cabling is clearly a mod, look. You can see that stick out because the original cabling was a lot of brown. And you get shit like this. That is, I think Beth Electrical would refer to that as something that is an ick. Yeah, she said it on a video the other week about having icks, and that's an ick for me, is changing the colour of a cable in the trunking. What a fucking bumhole. The person that's done that, not Beth. But yeah, there you go, the trunking lid's off. This trunking's really weird as well, look at that trunking. Isn't that an odd size trunking? But it is great. I quite like it. I just like that as a trunking. I like closed lock trunking, but yeah, that's the panel. Let me just turn you around and talk to you about colours. You can already see what a fantastic teaching aid it is to have an actual panel. So cheers again to Eddie, because it's hard to get your hands on, yeah? Just a couple of things before you go into panels, yeah, when you go into them. First, make sure they are fixed down, because you don't want it tipping over. I've gone over that, yeah? Make sure, if you go into a panel that looks like this, and all the lids in the bottom, the first thing you want to do, because you're a decent sparker, not a fucking shit house, is push everything back in and get the lid on. Because often, people use the lid for all the labels and stuff like that. Once you've got that little mess sorted out, and while you're doing that, isolate dickhead, is you want to try and work out what cable colours they're using. The good thing about this panel is they've used two. But obviously, there's loads and loads to choose from. If it's a 240 panel, you'll find a lot of time that it's brown and blue. You'll also have control cables in there. White is often control voltages. The one we use the phase colours, brown, black, grey, green and yellow for earth, dark blue for DC, and red for AC. But people do what they want. When I worked for a Blue Circle, 24 volt DC there was pink and purple. I can't remember which way around it was, but it's pink and purple. And AC 110 control voltage was grey. And on the waterboard, they have different colours. And I'm sure another control panels now is shouting out the screen, but if you've got it, let me know, because the good thing about standards is there's so many to choose from. But if you don't know what the colours are, you don't be fucking around in there, do you? Look at that dick. Look at that. 2 orange cables going to a white. Let me show you that. I just noticed it out of the corner of my eye. This camera's the wrong way around. Look at that. That's the kind of shit you're fighting against when you're in a control panel, is shit like that being done. Because that makes testing easy, because you're testing an orange cable at one end, you're looking for it at the other, and it's changed colour or vice versa. So I just thought I'd show you that, because that's fucking ran me off. Anyhow, enough of me, yeah? That little process I've just done there, looking at all the door, looking at the inside of the door, looking at everything, going all over the panel, looking at the colours, looking at everything, I do that every single time I go into a control panel. That's not me showing you just for the sake of it. That's what I do every time I go to a control panel. I don't start fucking pulling fuses or whipping stuff out or resetting breakers or doing anything like that until I've done that process, because that gives me a rough idea of what's going on. And even at this stage now, I don't totally know what's going on. I've got a rough idea that one, it's got 24 volt AC control and 240 volt AC control, so I need to be careful with my test in case I blow it up. It's got a couple of transformers, one of which don't shut up when I open the door, and it's got trend, and it's a fuck trend. But yeah, that is the process I go through with a control panel. Thank you for watching, dickhead. When we come back next time to this panel, so we went up today, we're going to put power to it, and we're going to see if it does anything, just for the crack. Yeah, we'll put power to it, see if it does anything, see if any of the trend stuff works, or if you get anything on the screen or anything interesting like that. Probably have to redact it anyway, because obviously where it's been, but it might be interesting to see what comes up. Then we're going to look at removing some of the stuff, which will be these cards, because I don't think I can use them. Eddie, let me know. And they're not really the style of it, although I will leave a couple in just to give it a bit of variety of everything. Then we're going to look at getting that trend out, getting that HMI out, and putting in one of the Cruise HMIs and the smart PLC into it, and making that control these motor starters and having some inputs on it, and just generally making it do something, or being able to do something. So we'll have some inputs, we'll have some outputs, we'll have a touch screen, and it can then be used for fault finding, live testing, and programming, stuff like that. And a few other bits I'll just go over now as well to show you, because it's a bit meh. Because it's such a well-made panel, look how thick that is. They don't make them that thick anymore, or with that good a paint. Because it's such a big, heavy panel, it's an absolute bastard to move around. I will move it around, though, because it's nice, but is there any way I could lose any weight? I mean, even if I cut the back out, I think most of the weight's in the components, to be fair. I don't think the panel weighs that much on its own. The door's thicker metal than this. So I don't think cutting the holes out of this or cutting the back out's going to be any good. So I think I'm just going to make it so it fits on my trolley and stands up something. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, there's a little introduction. I'll do this to camera, hang on. Yeah, so there's a little introduction to control panels and what might be in them. Watch it a couple of times, make me some sweet YouTube coin. That is the process to go through every time you go in one. And when you start finding stuff, you won't get any instructions for that. But you start finding these cards stuff, I'm sure they're Googleable, but that's for another time. This is just a little introduction. So yeah, I will see you later, because now I've got to finish clean up in here and put all my wood away and stopping this, which won't follow me and kill me, which would be nice for my wife, who'd get paid. Goodbye.